Welcome to App Stories, a weekly exploration of the world of apps. Today's show is brought to you by Muse and Pingdom. I'm John Voorhees, and with me as always is Federico Vitici. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Boy, you know, I always forget how busy we get as September rolls around, and things have been a little extra crazy this year and unpredictable given that the schedule is completely unknowable. But we are making progress, as usual, on reviews, but we're also getting ready for the Club Mac Stories anniversary.
Mhm.
And this year's, I guess it's a pretty big one. It's the 5th anniversary. It's been going on for quite a while now.
Yeah, I really can't believe it that it's already 5 years since we launched the club in 2015. It really is a remarkable milestone. Personally, when I think back of the days before the club, I would have never thought that it would become such an important part of what we do, and that we would
Right.
be able to make it profitable and growing over the course of 5 years or half a decade at this point. And it really is an incredible privilege, I think, to be able to have these members who supporting us every week, every month. I really think it's honestly, I believe the club is possibly the best thing that has happened to Mac Stories over the course and evolution of the site over the past decade. And I really cannot be thankful enough to anybody who's checked out the club or recommended the club or supported us over the years. And for this reason, every year, for the past few years, we've been doing an anniversary month, which is sort of like a campaign to remind people about the club, but also to celebrate the club's introduction in September of 2015. And we thought we would make it extra special this year. So you can expect a lot of discounts and special perks and lots of giveaways. We're collaborating with developers of your favorite iOS, iPadOS, Mac apps, and web services. We're going to offer a lot of things, either at a discounted price or via giveaways. It's going to be fun. And of course, in addition to that, there's also going to be, I think even more importantly, perhaps, extra downloadable perks as well as extra content. So whether it's, making of our OS reviews or downloadable ebooks or other downloadable perks, extra podcasts also, like there's a lot of things that we can do. And the best part is you can, if you're new to the club, you can sign up for a month and you can get all of this stuff. You can even get all of the previous perks from previous years, because you sign up for the club, you get access to the full archive, which includes past issues of the newsletters as well as past downloadable perks. And then if you like the club, you can maybe sign up for an annual subscription, or you can check it out for a few more months, see if you like it. So yeah, it's we're doing more than at least that's the plan, doing more than in previous years in terms of the exclusive content that members and existing members and new members arriving to the site in September and October will be able to find. It's going to be fun, and it's a lot of work to set these anniversary month celebrations, to organize them and everything. But I think we're really preparing something special here this time, and I'm very, very, very excited.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's absolutely worth it, and it's great to kind of share this with all the club members. And we'll be doing this over the course of like 4 weeks, so a solid month, as you said. And so it's a lot of fun to kind of get to reveal those things little by little as the month goes on. And we've really, I know in talking to developers, we've already got a bunch signed up for the perks, and I really tried this year to mix it up, get some fresh new blood in there, so to speak, different apps, things that we've been trying during the beta season over the summer that we know are just going to be fantastic for iOS 14. So there's going to be all kinds of interesting apps in there, many of which haven't participated in the past, but also a lot of longtime favorites too. So we certainly appreciate the participation of the developers and really look forward to sharing that with our members. This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Muse. Last week, a new professional app for the iPad was launched, and that's Muse, a tool for thought. It gives you a spatial canvas for research notes, sketches, screenshots, bookmarks, and PDFs. File managers and note-taking apps tend to be pre-sorted lists and grids. By contrast, Muse is inspired by your desk. It's personal, creative, and even a little messy. Pull documents and clippings from files, the camera roll, drag and drop, and copy and paste, and even use the Apple Pencil to draw all over everything. I've been using this to get ready for app reviews that I'm doing. I'll pull together PDFs that developers send me, information from websites, screenshots, notes, all sorts of things. And then I connect the dots using the Apple Pencil, moving things around the canvas, connecting them with lines and arrows, taking margin notes, and that sort of thing. It's a fantastic way to find connections and organize your thoughts before you start writing. And that's just one of the many ways to use Muse. It's even got an incredible zooming interface to nest all your content spatially. Muse is $99.99 per year, but you can try it for free. Just visit museapp.com for more information and to download it from the App Store. Again, that URL is museapp.com, where you can learn more and download the app from the App Store. Because deep thinking doesn't happen in front of a computer. Museapp.com. Our thanks to Muse for supporting App Stories this week. Federico, today I want to talk about widgets because you and I have talked about them here and there, but I think now that we're into September, we have now tried so many different widgets that we're starting to get, I think, a better sense now that we have third-party widgets as to how we're going to use those. Nothing's like locked in stone yet, set in stone or locked down, but we're getting a better sense for how we're going to use it. It's funny, I think it was last Saturday, you and I discovered that we were both doing the same thing independently and simultaneously, which was sitting around playing with betas all day long Saturday, testing them out, sending feedback to developers. And I was especially focused on widgets last Saturday. So I've really got some thoughts to share on this. And I don't know, how do you want to approach this? I think maybe kind of the different ways we use them is probably just as interesting as what we're using, because a lot of these, obviously a lot of these aren't available yet because they're all in beta, but I've got a few different approaches that I'm taking, and I know you do too.
Yeah, I really don't, at this point, I don't have a finalized home screen layout, so I don't feel like I'm in a position to share a screenshot of my iPhone or iPad home screen, also because basically all the widgets that we're now testing are, if they don't come from Apple, they come from third-party developers. And of course, those apps haven't been announced officially yet. And some of those developers would prefer if we don't share screenshots at the moment. However, what I want to talk about is sort of some of the underlying ideas in terms of app choices and layouts and the separation between the Today page, which I don't think is I think a lot of people are focusing on the ability to place widgets on the home screen. And
right.
They don't necessarily remember that the Today view is still it continues to be a really good way to pack a lot of information in a single screen, especially because you can get to that page so quickly from the home screen with just a single swipe. So the separation between what goes on the home screen, what stays in the Today page, that's sort of the core ideas that I would like to discuss today. So what's the approach that you're taking, John, in terms of how many home screen pages do you think you will end up using, and do you think you will still use the Today view as well?
I will definitely be using the Today view, and I'm going to talk primarily about the iPhone because I have not spent nearly as much time on my iPad widgets yet. And, frankly, because they're more limited there's less to talk about too. But I've got a Today. I'll start with the Today view, and then then we can talk a little bit about mixing widgets in with icons, and then I've also got a series of dedicated widget pages now, which are widget-only pages, and they're kind of thematic, so I can go through that. But on the Today page, on the Today view, I've tried to put things here that are the kind of things that I regularly want to look at just very quickly. Just very much the glanceable kind of stuff, but not things that I'd want on my home screen. The home screen I'll get to, but on the Today view, I've got a small widget that shows me the time zones for San Francisco, New York, Dublin and Rome. That's both where my kids live and where you and Ryan are. A battery widget, small one, which I'm not sure whether I'll keep that one or not, but I've been testing that out again. And then Timery and an RSS client, Lear, which is showing me just my Apple News down. And that's a large widget because that way I can get like 4 headlines on there. And then I guess the final one of the iOS 14 widgets is AnyBuffer, because AnyBuffer has a widget that allows you to basically tap on it and go straight to a shelf. And so I've got a medium-sized one there with 4 of my shelves there, so I can very quickly jump there and grab some text or an image or something that I use regularly. And that's what I'm doing today right now.
Interesting. So I've been thinking about the kinds of widgets that I want to have on the Today page and the home screen. And I feel like, and maybe this will change, but I've been thinking about this for a few weeks. I feel like I want to separate my, and I'm going to refer to the iPhone's home screen because the iPad situation is kind of sad. On the iPhone, I think I want to end up in a place where the home screen has, I'm going to call it like shortcuts type widgets, in the sense of widgets that launch or open something that provide me with quick access to specific actions. And they tend to be more productivity oriented, at least on the first couple of pages. And I want to save the Today page for glanceable widgets. So widgets that provide me with data, with information that I can just look at without necessarily tapping on the widget to open it and to open the app and do something. So to separate the home screen pages and the Today page in a way that one of them is glanceable, so I can just swipe over, take a look at the data. It's already useful. I don't need to open anything. And the home screen, I want to have a mix of apps, so regular app icons, fewer than usual, because I'm actually kind of using the app library at this point.
I am too.
So a mix of apps, widgets, and a few shortcuts icons still to be able to launch shortcuts. So to give you a concrete example, the Today page, I'm experimenting with all kinds of widgets at the moment. But for sure, what I'm going to have in there is, I think at the very top, a calendar. So I really like there's 2 calendars that I like. The default one is the medium-sized widget for the Apple Calendar app, the default one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Which is the widget with the events on the left side and the mini monthly calendar on the right side. I really feel like this is a good balance in terms of information. You can show me the upcoming events on the left, and you can show me the entire month on the right. And also it's a quick way to see the current day of the week and the month. Some developers are going to provide alternatives to this widget with some additions. Now, without getting into too many details, I think one of the apps that we need to keep an eye on this year, because they're really working on some excellent updates for iOS 14, is Good Task. And you may think, well, why would you want to use Good Task while Reminders got such a major upgrade last year and Apple is actually continuing to improve Reminders this year? And I'm telling you, the Good Task, the developer is doing some really, really interesting things with widgets. One of them is a version of the Medium calendar widget that combines calendars and reminders and can actually be customized. So I'm playing around with both. Do I want to use the Apple one? Or if I end up sticking with reminders, which is another discussion that I'll mention in a few minutes, do I want to use the Good Task one? So whatever I choose, I feel like there's going to be a mini monthly calendar at the top. And following the monthly calendar, I think for sure I'm going to have a time zone widget, because that's the kind of information that I find myself needing on a daily basis. Like multiple times a day, I want to know what time it is, either in Chicago for you, John, or in New York, in Cupertino, all these kinds of places. And I feel like I need to have a time zone widget right at the top of the Today page. And I'm playing playing around with a bunch of options. There's a word clock app that I'm testing that has a widget, really colorful one. But also there's the upcoming Widgetsmith by David Smith. We talked about this briefly on App Stories before, and one of the many modules that you will be able to create with Widgetsmith is a time zone one, and you can actually customize it and fully make it your own. So I'm probably gonna use Widgetsmith for this one, I think. And I love there's also another discussion to have here on what I think will become a trend of these utilities that let you create your own widgets from scratch and actually design your own widgets. And I think Widgetsmith, and there's a few other ones that are coming out in a few weeks, and I think this is definitely going to be one of those trends. So calendar, time zones, and as you can imagine, what's the next glanceable type of thing that you want to have in there?
Right.
There's two things for me. I think it's either going to be weather or my list of upcoming tasks.
Okay.
Now, John, let me ask you, because you are much more of a weather expert, I think, than me, especially because
Okay.
Chicago gets crazy weather. So
That is true. This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Pingdom from SolarWinds. Users expect a fast web experience. No matter how good your content is or how effective your marketing is, they'll most likely bounce if your website is loading too slowly. With real user monitoring from Pingdom, you can discover how website performance issues affect your visitors' experience, so you can take action before your business is impacted. How your visitors experience your website differs depending on the browser, device, and platform they use. So you want to identify how visitors are experiencing your website so you can make informed optimizations and deliver a great performance to those who matter the most. Real user monitoring is an event-driven solution, so it's built for scalability, meaning you can monitor millions of page views without compromising the fidelity of your historical data or breaking the bank in the process. Get live visitor insights today with real user monitoring from Pingdom. Go to pingdom.com/signup right now for a 14-day free trial with no credit card required. Then, when you sign up, use the code AppStories at checkout to get an awesome 30% off your first invoice. Again, that URL is pingdom.com/signup for a 14-day free trial with no credit card, and then use the code AppStories at checkout to get 30% off your first invoice. Our thanks to Pingdom from SolarWinds for their support of the show.
what are you doing in terms of weather widgets? Are you using the Apple one? Are you using something else? What's your plan for checking on the crazy Chicago winters?
Well, most of this beta period, I've been using the Apple one because that's the only one that's the only one that I've had until recently. And what I've done is I've actually got on my home screen 2 separate stacks, both of which smart rotate. And I've actually found the smart rotation to be pretty good in terms of predicting when I want things to show up. So, for instance, I have a small weather widget in a stack, and most of the time when I get up in the morning, the weather widget is showing, and I can see what the temperature is outside and what the forecast is for the day. So I've got that on my home screen because I like to, it does, you're right, the weather here changes pretty drastically from day to day sometimes. And so it's nice to start your day off and know whether it's going to be blistering hot or cold or whatever. So yeah, I've got that on my home screen now, and I'm using 2 different stacks on my home screen right now, a small one near the top and then a medium-sized one kind of dead center in the middle. And I've kind of found that these stacks are a little bit like fidget spinners. I kind of like to flick through them just idly sometimes because that's my medium widget is both of these stacks are mostly at this point Apple widgets. I've got photos because it's just kind of nice throughout the day to see different photos from the past pop up. A lot of them are, they're basically moments usually in the Photos app, on this day, say 5 years ago, that sort of thing. And then I've got the calendar one in there that you talked about, and music, because that just gives me a quick access to something that I probably either am in the middle of listening to or recently listened to and would be willing to listen to again. And then, Music Harbor is in there too, which is coming. And drafts. I've got a drafts dictation widget, although I haven't used it much yet. I haven't decided whether whether that's going to be kind of my quick text entry system via widget, will be via drafts or some other note-taking app. I have played around a little bit with Notes here, but I'm not sure Notes is the right app for that. I've kind of decided that I want the Notes app to be for more like reference material and things that don't change a lot, or I don't know. It's like a semi-permanent place for information that I need periodically. Whereas if I have just like, I need to jot something down because I just don't have time to throw it in a task manager or whatever, just a scratch pad, basically. I want to have a separate app for that, and I haven't decided on exactly what that's going to be. I've been using Tot, I've been using Drafts, but I'm really kind of in between deciding where that kind of thing will go right now.
Interesting. So you are using stacks.
I am, and I like them a lot. Like I said, I like to idly flick them, but I find, especially with the what's it called? Smart Sort or
Smart Rotate.
Smart Rotate. When Smart Rotate is turned on, I find it works pretty well. I've got the activity rings up there too, and I know that you've said to me, why don't you just look at your watch? I don't know. I just kind of like I look at my phone as much as I look at my watch, I suppose, and it's just handy to see it there once in a while. And it like I said, these rotate throughout the day, and so I'll get a little update on where am I on my activity rings? What's the temperature outside? What's a photo that I might want to look at? What events do I have coming up? It's been pretty handy. I started out with very large stacks originally, and I've whittled them down. And I think what I need to do next is figure out which of the third-party widgets that I'm using belong in the stack and which belong on kind of a dedicated page, which is the other thing that I'm doing.
I'm kind of struggling with stacks because
How come?
the smart rotation, I don't know. Maybe I'm not the target user for this kind of feature. I am so particular when it comes to my home screen that I struggle to accept the idea of the OS rotating widgets on my behalf.
I am not surprised that Federico Petici is telling me that he wants to have total control over his home screen.
Yes, so I'm kind of struggling with that. And the regular stacks, so without the smart automatic rotation on, I like the idea. I just feel that it kind of defeats the purpose of a widget, because the widget itself, because these widgets are supposed to be glanceable most of the time anyway, they don't invite interactions.
Right.
And because of that, I feel like I'm less incentivized to tap on them or to do something with them, right? So I forget that there's a stack. For example, I just realized that a compact widget that I set up on my home screen weeks ago was actually a stack. And I forgot because you only get the indicators for a stack when you scroll on the widget, right?
Right.
You don't see the page indicators unless you scroll on the widget. And so I feel like it's kind of a hidden feature that is sort of it works in the opposite way of what these widgets have been designed to do. And I know that Ryan, for example, has similar feelings on stacks. So I'm having a hard time accepting the smart rotation. And I also wish that the stacks were, maybe it's a design problem. Maybe I wish there was a setting that allowed me to always show the page indicators. I feel like I really need that visual cue, the visual reminder that it's actually a stack. And I don't know, maybe the regular stacks will grow on me, but I've kind of struggled with them so far. And instead, what I've done is I have set up compact widgets next to each other. So this brings me to my next point of how am I balancing my home screen in terms of widget sizes and the kinds of widgets that I'm using. So as I mentioned before, on the home screen, I'm leaning toward using widgets that do something, that I can tap them to do something. Ideally, these widgets should support interactions, but that's not possible in iOS 14. So at the very least, I want to be able to tap on a widget and be taken into an application, and that application does something for me. So there's a few things I'm playing around with here. as I mentioned before, on the first page on my home screen, I think I want to have like a media corner. So media apps, App Store, Music, Instagram, and Castro. So 4 icons, and next to them a compact widget. And if there's any place where I'm gonna end up creating a stack, it's probably this one. Because right now, the only compact widget that I have is the Apple Music recently played widget, which shows me the single most recently played album or song from Apple Music. Ideally, this should be a stack. I would like to have a similar now playing shortcut for Castro, if Castro ever adopts widgets, and I think they will, because Castro, the Castro developers are always on top of the latest features.
Right.
And maybe some other kind of music-related widgets. Like I would love to have a widget that takes me to a specific playlist, for example. So that would work really well with the compact widget that has like a single target type of deal. I would love to be able to create a widget that takes me to a specific playlist in Apple Music. Maybe I will be able to do this with Launcher, although I'm not sure yet.
Sorry, you can do it. I've done it.
Oh, okay. But does it take you to Apple Music, or does it play the playlist in the background?
That's a good question.
I think it plays the playlist in the background. I don't think it's possible for apps to open a specific private playlist in Apple Music or in the Music app. I don't know. I could be wrong, though. So the next widgets, this is where my home screen is very much in flux at the moment. So without giving too much away, I think the 2 task managers to keep an eye on this year are, as I mentioned, Good Task and Todoist. I actually used to use Todoist years ago, and then I moved to other solutions. You should check out what the Todoist developers have been sharing on Twitter in terms of widgets that they're working on. And the Todoist developers are doing this really, really clever and technically impressive solution for widgets, in that they will let you create widgets to create new tasks inside a specific project. Basically, a widget to create a task based on a template. So you can configure the widget and you can say, when I tap on this thing, I want to be taken into a specific project, and I have all these other details already filled in, like the project, the section, maybe the due date, maybe the title of a task. So a customizable new task widget that supports a template. And to configure the template, right? When you press on the widget and you say edit widget, you're taken into this configuration screen, right? That configuration is based on the same options that you see for the add task action in the Shortcuts app. So you see that integration, right, between WidgetKit and Shortcuts parameters, like the 2 technologies helping each other.
Yep.
That widget configuration screen is based on those parameters that you also get in the Shortcuts app. So you get consistency, and you get the ability to now use those parameters in a totally different way on the home screen. So I am playing around with the idea of, because right now on my home screen, on my first page, I only have the compact reminders widget that shows me the total number of tasks due today. But if I really end up switching to Todoist, or maybe I could consider something like multiple compact widgets to create tasks in different places. Like I could have a compact widget to create a new Mac Stories task, and I could have another one to create an iOS 14 review one, and I could have one to create a new, personal task. So really fast ways to create new tasks from the home screen without having to fill out all those details by hand.
Right.
That's an idea that I'm playing around with. And finally, I would also mention Shortcuts widgets and Shortcuts icons. I am torn on this because one of the benefits of the Shortcuts widget is that you get that compact UI on the home screen. So something like MusicBot, for example, is actually really well done now, because if you install a Shortcuts widget for MusicBot, you can now run it from the home screen. You get the list of actions for MusicBot on the home screen in the form of compact UI with like these banners descending from the top of the screen And it's really well done because it doesn't leave the home screen. It doesn't take you to shortcuts. It runs in line within the home screen. So that's very cool. The ability to run shortcuts entirely from the home screen with compact UI, which includes the ability to enter text and choose from menus and choose from lists. Really well done. However, what I dislike is that like the compact widget, it takes the space of 4 icons on the home screen for a single shortcut, right? And the medium-sized widget for shortcuts, it only shows you 4 shortcuts inside the widget. So the information density of the medium widget, I kind of dislike.
Yeah, although it's better than the small widget because at least it's 4.
At least it's 4 of them. I really should have been 8, if you ask me. Like it's big enough to accommodate 8 small rectangles. So in an ideal situation, right, what Apple should have done is maintain the ability to install individual shortcuts on the home screen as icons, but when you tap them, you get compact UI.
Yep.
However, it doesn't work like that in iOS 14.
Nope.
You can still install a shortcut on the home screen as an icon, but when you tap it, it doesn't run in line on the home screen with compact UI. It takes you into the Shortcuts app, which is faster than before. And in Shortcuts, you do see compact UI, but you're still taken out of the home screen and into something else.
Right.
So I'm a bit torn at the moment because I do like the fact that with icons, and I'm using, of course, the Mac Stories Shortcuts icons myself. With icons, you save a lot of space, right? It's a single icon. It doesn't occupy 4 slots. However, I really like the fact that the Shortcuts widget runs inside the home screen. So that's the thing I'm trying to figure out. Like, what's my preferred way of running these shortcuts? Maybe I think I will eventually accept the fact that I need to have a mix of both. So have shortcuts icons and the medium-sized widget. Because the compact one, I really struggle to justify having 4 slots for a single shortcut. I think that's really hard to justify personally. Or maybe the compact style widget for shortcuts, that should be a stack. I can see that one being a stack, cycling through shortcuts with a single swipe. You don't need to install multiple compact widgets. You can just install a single one and cycle through your shortcuts that way. Maybe that's also an idea.
I think you should have a dedicated shortcuts page that has a mix of icons on the home screen. As well as stacks of shortcuts that'll run right in line. I'm going to make another run at you on these stacks because here's the thing about stacks. It solves the problem that you're having, which is they take up so much space. I mean, the small one eliminates 4 icons from your home screen. If you stack them, you can make up those 4 slots and more. The same goes for any of the other sizes. That's essentially why I'm using stacks. I think some of the apps that I'm using on my first home screen are different than you, though, in that most of these Apple widgets aren't ones that I'm interacting with a lot. I mean, I'll see the photo, and sometimes I just look at the photo on the widget. I don't open the Photos app, or I'm glancing at the weather or at my activity rings. I'm not actually drilling into those apps ever. So I find that the stacks are particularly good for that kind of thing, or calendar, for instance, another good example. You don't necessarily have to go to your calendar. You just want to see what's coming up. And that way, if you use the Smart Rotate and just these glanceable ones, I think the stacks make more sense. Plus, they do make sense, I think, in the situation you're talking about, where you really want to pack in a lot of something. And that might be the Good Tasks widget. You want to have a stack of different ones that it creates, or Todoist, those templates you were talking about. Maybe you do a whole bunch of templates and you just stack them up, and you can just quickly flick between them to find the one that you want. What I'm doing with dedicated pages, though, are not stacks. I have dedicated pages for health and fitness, task management and calendar, music, and weather. So the health and fitness, I've got various things here that do things like give me a heart points. You know, how am I doing? CardioBot has this concept of heart rate points and how you're doing, and I can check how I'm doing throughout the day based on how much exercise I've gotten. And I'm using one from Ascend, which is an app that tracks how many flights of stairs you've climbed in a day, and it tells me how close I am to my goal. And another one that shows me like my resting heart rate and my average heart rate and stuff like that, time in bed. And then another one from Tempo that's showing me what my weekly, monthly, and yearly running totals are in my last run, that kind of stuff. So it's just like, it's the kind of data that's super buried in a lot of times in the health app, and I'm surfacing it. Just the pieces that I think are interesting. And I might not stick with all of these, but for right now, I find it kind of interesting. You know, I've never really paid attention to what my resting heart rate is or my average heart rate. That's being monitored by my watch all the time, but I never dig in and look at it. And now I can kind of see it. It's just kind of interesting to know. You know, the task management is probably the one that's most in flux right now because I have not switched from OmniFocus to Good Task or to Todoist. So I'm going to try both of those out, I think. I just haven't gotten around to moving my stuff over. I've also got one of these, you know, these widget builder apps. I've got another one that shows me 2 months, just two little mini calendars side by side. So I can see September and October all at once, which is just handy because a lot of times, you know, when we're planning to publish an episode of this show, for instance, I need to know what the date is of the Monday 3 weeks from now. So it's just easy to find that way. And then with music, I've got a combination of favorite playlists that I can launch at the tap of a button. I've got the recently added albums using Picky, so I can also just get recently added stuff. And then Music Harbor, so I can see what's coming up in the weeks ahead with music. And then finally, I'm doing some stuff with weather, with radar and with air quality, so I can see. This would be good for anybody who's in the Bay Area for sure, where I can see what the air quality in our town is, so that if I'm going out for a run, I can know, is it one of those days where they say be careful and don't run, don't go outside and do hard exercise over these certain hours, because that happens in Chicago. But today's a nice day. It's a very low particulate in the air, I guess. But yeah, I'm testing that out, and those are widgets that I don't go to a lot, but maybe once or twice a day when I'm not doing anything else, I'll swipe over to these pages and just kind of see where I stand on exercise, or maybe I want to pick something to listen to and with the music, or get more detail on the weather. And those are ways to do it.
Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, like I said, there's still a lot for me to consider. Like, I think I will take you up on that suggestion of the shortcuts page. I think the shortcuts page could ideally become a mix of shortcuts and task manager widgets.
Oh, that's
so
interesting.
whether I start using Good Task or Todoist, because I really feel like I want to play around with those two apps at the moment, because they have a real solid and rich iOS 14 and iPadOS 14 integration going
right
at the moment. So I feel like I want to use them now to understand the possibilities for task managers with the new OSs. But I think I could come up with like maybe my second page. So the first page of my home screen, I want to keep like my most used apps and something for notes, because I also use notes a lot. So the apps like Twitter and Safari, Mail, Slack, Instagram, like shortcuts, all these things I want to keep on the first page. On the second page right now, I have a mix of like entertainment apps as well as some shortcuts. So maybe this should actually become the third page, and the second page should be a mix of shortcuts widgets and either Todoist or Good Task widgets, so that it becomes very simple for me to essentially, like, think of my iPhone as with these three different pages, right? There's the leftmost today page, and that's for glancing. That's the page in the middle, which is the home screen, and that's the launcher for essential things.
Right.
And the page on the right, I feel like it should be the shortcuts and task manager page, where It's very easy for me to run shortcuts. So common things that I want to run quickly, and saving tasks quickly. So that basically I end up in a situation where with a single swipe, right, either left or right, I have access to the full breadth of actions I typically perform on my phone. I think that's the idea. And then following the second page, like I want to have a music page for sure. I think I'm kind of set on the idea of having a page where there's the music harbor widget, which is going to be really, really nice to quickly reopen recent releases, as well as some other music shortcuts. So I think for sure I'm going to have an a music page where it's a mix of Music Harbor, Music Bot, and a Shazam shortcut that I have. And then maybe before the app library, I think there's going to be a fourth page where I'm kind of playing around with some ideas, but I'm not sure on this yet. I think I'm really struggling with keeping the number of pages low because I want to try all the widgets.
Yeah, it is hard. And I think the thing that you suggested to me that I've found has worked really well is when I want to test something out, I throw it into the today view and I just kind of push it down towards the bottom of the stack. And then, if I live with it for a little while, and if I really like it, I'll find a spot for it in the stack. Otherwise, I'll just delete it later. I really like your idea of shortcuts and task managers. That's really the area that I've spent the least amount of time on so far, especially with shortcuts. So I like the idea of either having a dedicated page for each of those or kind of combining them, as you said, into one page and having all that stuff right there. That seems like a really good idea, especially if you use stacks for both templated tasks and for shortcuts. That could work really well. All right, Federico, I think that's it for this week. This is going to be an evolving process. We're continuing to get betas and figure out exactly how we want to use these things. But and at some point, we'll have to talk about the iPad a little bit too. I don't think it's nearly as exciting since you can't put things on the home screen, but still, it's there. There's going to have to be a whole different strategy there because of the limited amount of space where they can occupy. I want to thank our two sponsors again, and that is Muse and Pingdom. Of course, you can find me and Federico over at macstories.net every week, and you can find Federico on Twitter and Instagram where he is at Viticci, that's VITICCI, and I'm at John Voorhees, JOHNVOORHWS. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.